Hi, and welcome to Aspire 2021. Um, Today, we're going to be talking about realigning with your values. I'm Brianna. I'm the Volunteer Engagement Manager here at Venture to Impact. And so I'm helping to facilitate all of Aspire, but today I'm putting on my holistic life and career coaching hat to lead you all through the process of realigning with your values. So if you joined us yesterday, you know that we talked about personal visions, how to determine what your personal vision is and why it's so important. And the next step in the process is to determine our values. And some of you may have determined your values with us if you were at Aspire in 2019 with us. And maybe you've done the process at work or on your own before. So we will spend a little time determining your values if you haven't determined them for yourself yet. But if you already have, this would be a great time to rethink them, make sure they are still indeed your personal values. And then we'll talk about how do we realign with them. And so the reason why we chose this topic when we were thinking about our theme, which is to reimagine and evolve, we were thinking about how when things get difficult, we sometimes drift from our values. And so when that happens, we need to know how to get back on track, how to realign with our values, which is why we're here today. So, yes, I started sharing our plan, but we're going to go through what values are, how to determine your core values, how to recognize when you're drifting, and how to realign. If you thought that today would be something you could just tune into, I am having you do some work, in part because values are very personal. You have to be the one to determine what your values are, and you also have to be what the drifting process looks different for everyone. So you'll have to think about what are the signs for yourself. So this is going to require some work on your part. And then the other reason being that I'm essentially going to kind of take you through a coaching session altogether, except I guess without your response, which makes it a little bit more challenging. But yeah, so I do hope you came ready to work. So before we begin, to prepare for that work, I do encourage you to close your email, Slack, etc. if that's something you're able to do right now. I know it's the middle of the workday for many people tuning in, so that might not be an option. But if you can, in order to be present, I do encourage you to close your email and Slack if possible. Flip over your phone so you don't have all the notifications distracting you, and have paper and a pen handy so that you can take notes. Of course, if you'd rather type, go for it. But I find that there's something special about handwriting important things. And then finally, just so that we're all able to be present here in this moment, we're going to take 3 deep breaths together. If you want to close your eyes, you can. If you want to join me, please do. I'm going to do 4 counts in and out. If you have a different preferred cadence, I guess, for breathing, that's fine too. So join me. We'll just take 3 deep breaths so that we can prepare ourselves for this work. I know I'm feeling calmer already, so hope that you are feeling ready as well. So before we jump in, again, just a place for us to check in. What are you hoping to get out of this time today? Why did you choose to join for our realigning with our values session? If you want, you can put your answer in the chat, but you don't have to. I do encourage you to write it down for yourself so that collectively we can work towards that. Just take a moment. Yes, love the responses in the chat to realign. Often they are in the background and I can forget them. Me too. Yeah, and to check in likewise, like I know what my values are, but I haven't necessarily taken a lot of time to think about them unless I set out the intentional time. So perfect. Glad you are here with us. Okay, so in case you are new to values, we often talk about them in the corporate context or organizational context. Most organizations talk about what their values are. And so similarly, we have personal values. Sometimes we don't know what they are, and that's why this will be our first step. But a value is a way of being or believing that we hold most important. So living into our values means that we do more than profess our values, we practice them. We walk our talk. We are clear about what we believe and hold important, and we take care that our intentions, words, thoughts, and behaviors align with those beliefs. So as you can see, it is a fairly active process, which is why it's so great that one person said that it's often in the background, but we want to bring it back to the forefront. We want to touch base with them. If they have the importance that they should, then we need to be aware. And I did take this quote from Brené Brown's book, Dare to Lead. For those of you who know me, you know I love her. And anyway, some of my other questions later come from her work as well. So I just want to cite Brené and thank her for all the work that she does and how she shapes so many lives. So now we know what values are, why are they important, why should we care? They serve as our North Star, especially when in difficult situations or in making difficult decisions, like the difficult situation that we are living in a pandemic. They help us to choose what is right for us personally over what is easy. This relates to our session yesterday with Anne as well, when we were talking about how vision helps us to know what we want so that we don't let other people determine our lives or to take us along with their vision. And so similarly, our values help us to choose what is right and also often over what is easy, which is when they are challenging to live out. And finally, they help us find our way in the dark and fill us with purpose. So I believe both of the people who are online with me right now have done this since you guys were at Aspire in 2019. But in case other people are tuning in live or watching this recording later, we're going to spend about 10 minutes determining our values. So on the next slide, there's going to be a list of words, value words, and I encourage you to take the time to cross off words that you do not resonate with at all, group values that are similar to one another, and choose the ones that stand out and most resonate with you. For those of you who've already gone through this process, I would encourage you to do it again. Check in with, are these still my core values? Has something changed when I determined them before? maybe they weren't exactly right. It's a challenging process. So I do encourage you to take a little bit of time to do it again. If you would like, I'm going to do it with you as well. And you can also ask yourself in this process, does this define me? This could also be your check if you already have them selected. Ask yourself, does this define me? Is this who I am at my best? And is this a filter that I use to make hard decisions? And just to note, Brené says you should choose 2. Other people say you can have as many as 5. But the point is, don't have too many, because if everything on the list is important, then nothing is really important. Just like if everything is a priority, then nothing really is. So it's going to be hard. That's why you can group them, but don't select more than 5. And if you're only able to select 1 value today, that's okay too. You'll be 1 step closer, and you'll still be able to continue with everything else we have planned, as long as you have that 1 value. So I'm going to hopefully turn on some music, even though I'm sharing my screen, and go ahead and take 10 minutes. Look through these values. And try and determine your top 2 to 5. I think. You have one more minute to wrap up this process. Okay, I know 10 minutes wasn't long, but hopefully you were at least able to narrow it down to a top or one value, if not more. I'm curious for those who are here with me, did you select the same values as before? But maybe before you share that, we should define our values. So what matters most here is that you define what your values mean for you. So, these words can have different meaning for different people. So what's important is what they mean for you. So now that you've decided and determined what your values are, I want you to take a moment to define them. So you could ask yourself, what does value X mean to me? Or how would you define value Y? So take a minute to take the words that you did select as your values and define them. What do they mean to you? Okay, great. Hopefully you've defined your values. I'll share just with everybody that I think one of mine changed slightly. So last time I said community, and this time I changed it to connection, because I think that is the more important part, which does happen in community, but it comes from a deep desire for myself and for all people to know that they are known, cared for, and loved as they are. So when I make decisions, when I'm in the dark, I think being a part of connection is one of the key things for me that drives my decisions. Okay. So now that we know what our values are, I want us to check in with how aligned we are with those values. So on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is low and 10 is high, obviously, how aligned with your values are you right now? So take a minute. If you want, you can put it in the chat, or you can just put it down for yourself. How aligned are you with the 2 to maybe 5 values you just determined? Nice. We have a 7. That's fantastic. Also really high. I like one person evaluated values collectively, and another person put each one on a scale. I like that too. 9, 6, and 6. Amazing. Well, I'm impressed with y'all. Okay, so now that we know what our values are, we've checked in with how aligned we are. I want us to think about, what does it look and feel like when you are living into your values? So this is that desired state. If you want, you can think about it as if you snapped your fingers and you're 100% in alignment. So what does it look like? What does it feel like? Maybe what does it sound like to other people or to yourself? How does it feel in your body when you are 100% living into those values? How does it affect the way that you show up at work, at home, or in various relationships in your life? So again, we're going to be taking a few minutes many times today, but take a few minutes and think about, when you are living into those values, what does it look like? We have someone say happier, more confident, and more fulfilled. Definitely agree with that, because you're aligned. Usually we do better when we're aligned. Although it doesn't mean it's not without challenge. As Brené says, often she knows she's in alignment with her values when she's having to make the hard decisions. Sometimes we think that if we're living into our values, it should be easy, but it often can be, those are the times when it's most difficult. I think ultimately we are much happier and more fulfilled because we are in alignment. We're walking our talk. Just take a few more moments to think about that desired state. We could think about any behaviors that also correlate. Also great words: relaxed and free, content and open, accepting and welcome. Yeah, man, I just want to be aligned with my values, reading how you're all feeling. And then if the opposite is true, then whew. And so now we're going to talk about that. So, we're having this conversation today because we're talking about how do we realign, which means we're assuming that we're not aligned. So what does it look like when you're out of alignment with your values? What are your early warning signs? For many of us, there's some sort of indication that we're starting to drift. Maybe it's resentment, bitterness, anger. Maybe it's something physical in our bodies. Our bodies are great at telling us things. Maybe when you're out of alignment, it affects your sleeping, your eating, your level of stress. So what's going on in your body? What are some early warning signs? How does it affect, again, the way that you show up in different areas of your life, work, home, your health, leisure, relationships? It's really important that we identify these things so that we can notice when we're drifting and make a course correction. If we don't notice, we can't get back in alignment. And then bringing it to the present moment. What are you currently doing or not doing that is affecting your alignment? So if you're not feeling that content and free, those confident feelings, what are you doing or not doing that is affecting your alignment? Is it maybe a situation that you're in, a relationship that you are in, that is affecting your alignment? And finally, what is preventing you from living into your values? Is there something in particular that's getting in the way or hampering you? So normally when coaching, I would not ask you many questions at the same time. So you can choose which ones do you want to think about here. But overall, we're thinking about what does it look like when you're not aligned with your values? I didn't check with y'all that I could share what you're saying, but hopefully it's okay since you're hearing me read aloud what's going on in the chat. But yes, I'm seeing some things in the body physically, tightness in the neck and the jaw. That tension and tightness is real. Frustration, yeah, me too. Lack of patience, resentment in my job or personal life, and procrastination, avoidance, being caught up in incorrect narratives. Yes, the stories that we are telling ourselves, or that we are believing, that we are being told, definitely affect our alignment. For me, some of my early warning signs as well are loneliness, which can also show up as tiredness. So sometimes it can be confusing, but those can be ones for me as well. So we're going to keep moving forward, but I do encourage you, whether you're here now or watching the recording, to think through all of these questions. Because as I said, you can't realign if you're not aware that you're not aligned. If you're unaware that you're not aligned, if you're drifting. So what are your signs? And especially noticing those early warning signs so you can course correct before you're too far off course. So some common things that people do when they're out of alignment are the 4 Ps. So you might resonate with one, many, or all of these things. But often when we are out of alignment with our values, we feel the need to prove, perfect, perform, and to please. So what that means is we feel the need to prove ourselves to ourselves, maybe just to ourselves, but probably to others. We feel the need to perfect things or everything. We feel the need to perform and to achieve. We're hustling and we feel the need to please other people. So that people pleasing starts coming into effect. So as you hear me saying these things, I welcome you to think when you're out of alignment, which of these do you tend to do? Maybe it's something else, but I know a lot of people can relate to these P's. Oh no, maybe you're more out of alignment than you thought. Oh dear, but that's okay. We're gonna get back into alignment. Oh, perfect. Having that all or nothing thinking. Binary thinking. Yes. 1, 2, and 4. Yep. See, as I said, at first I was gonna say one of these might show up or a few, and then I was like, or all. I think I experience all of them. Depends. So, yep, with you all. Okay, so now, how do you realign? Oh, my screen sharing button is in the way. So I want you to think about a couple of things here so that we can realign. And now that we've realized that we're drifting, we know our warning signs, we know what's happening in our bodies or how we might be interacting with the world with the 4 Ps. Now let's realign. So in order to do that, I'd like for you to think of at least 3 behaviors that support each of the values that you identified. We've determined what our values are, and naming is always the first step. But now in order to operationalize our values, we need to turn them into behaviors. So I want you to ask yourself, what are at least 3 behaviors that support each of my values? If it's helpful to think of certain situations or decisions that you make, or times of more darkness where you need your values, maybe think about those situations and what would be the behaviors that would support that you are operationalizing, that you're living out your values. Also think about what are the slippery behaviors that help me recognize that I'm drifting. So we already started to think about that previously. But so again, knowing how we're drifting so we can course correct is an important part of realigning as well. And then finally, I want you to think about what support do I need to live out the 3 behaviors associated with each value. So we are not an island, we are not alone. Life is hard, we need the support of others. So I also want you to ask yourself, what support do I need in order to live out these 3 behaviors? And maybe you're able to identify the support, but you're not getting it right now. So our next step will be thinking about how do we start getting that support as well. So again, take a few minutes. Think about what are the behaviors that support your values, what are the slippery behaviors, the actions that we find ourselves tempted to do, even though they are counter to our values, and then what support do you need? Okay, we're going to keep going, but I do encourage you to keep thinking about these things later on, especially if you haven't been able to identify the behaviors that would enable you to operationalize each of your values. Again, because being clear about those behaviors will let you know when you are or are not aligning with your values, and knowing what you want will make it a tiny bit easier when you're in those difficult times or decision points. So come back to this later if you need to. Okay, so now that we are back on track and we're realigned, now we need to start taking some action. So I want you to think about, what action can I take this week to realign with my values? I want you to ask yourself, what support or resources do I have or need to develop in order to take this step? And finally, how am I going to hold myself accountable to taking this step? Something that I've noticed is that for most of us, things don't get done without accountability. So that final question is an important one as well. How are you going to hold yourself accountable to taking this step so that you can get back on track? So again, take a few moments, think about, what is that action that you're going to take? What support or resources you have or need to develop? And then how are you going to hold yourself accountable? Good one. Start meditating again, because when you're mindful, you can take the time to think about your values. So true. Self-awareness, so key to everything. And that mindfulness and meditation piece. Well, since you put it in the chat, I will be looking to see your updates on Instagram again. Hopefully you can get back to your 50 or 100 days that you had before. Okay, so well, I guess not at the very beginning, but after we determined our values, I had you check in with where you're at on a scale from 1 to 10. So I'd encourage you to do that again. On a scale from 1 to 10, how aligned with your values are you right now? You can also think about, once you take that first step, how aligned with your values will you be? Hopefully you stay the same or went up as opposed to down, although I know I saw a comment of maybe you overestimated initially. But I enjoy just a scale to check in on things that are hard to measure sometimes. So this could also be a great way for you to check in regularly with yourself. maybe it's a part of a structure that you put in place of, I don't know, if you meditate or the first of the month, something like that, you can check in as well with how aligned with your values are you right now. Maybe some habit stacking, for those who are familiar, could also be a time to check in with your values. Perfect. With your next step, you'll be up to. Love it. Okay, and then just as our closing question, to tune in with yourself, to continue to build that awareness, what did you learn about yourself today? It could be directly related to the values work. It could be related to something else. But to close our time together, I would love it if you would think, what did you learn about yourself today? Again, as always, feel free to share it in the chat. I'd love to know, but it could also just be for yourself. And if you're watching this recording, do this. What did you learn about yourself today? Yes, thanks for sharing that some of your values do change over time as you grow, and it's worthwhile to check in and actually think about that change. Yes. I mean, we're constantly changing and evolving individuals. We get to know ourselves better with time. And so, yeah, I agree. Checking in with your values regularly is really important. You should check in with your visions, maybe your personal missions, your values. All of these things are important. Maybe if you're somebody who sets goals at the beginning of the year, something like that, add on values for yourself as well. Check in with those slippery behaviors. Yep. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, well, that was our closing question. So thank you to everybody who joined live. For those of you who watch this recording, thanks for taking the time to show up for yourself and putting in the work. It's not easy, but so important. And we often let other competing priorities take precedence. So I just applaud you for taking the time to show up today, whatever day it might be, and putting in the work. So thank you for that. And finally, if you have the chance to join us tomorrow, we're talking about collaboration and kindness. And on Thursday, we're talking about navigating fear and anxiety. Did I say Friday? I meant Thursday. If I said Friday, I'm not sure. Same time, same place, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Two really great speakers that'll be with us, Heidi and Emily. If you joined us last year, they both shared with us last year as well. Really knowledgeable in their fields. So please join us, and we would love to have you and to continue to reimagine and evolve forward into whatever is next with you all. Thank you so much, everybody.